Hello, BookShark Bootcamp. I am your community manager, Janna Cook, and today we are doing November Live. I want to welcome those who have recently joined our bootcamp. We are so happy that you are here. Those who have been here from the beginning of 2024, just want to let you know our bootcamp is open all the way through to April of 25. So we will continuously let people who have purchased BookShark and decided to start their homeschool journey even mid-year, part of our boot camp. And for those who are watching on Bootcamp Alum, so I want to thank you guys for being faithful campers and continuing to support this community. It is hard to believe that it's November of 24 for those of us who started way back in 2020. So I have a homeschool parent on with me today. I'm going to bring her on. Her name is Andrea Hancock. And like myself, she was a reluctant homeschooler. And like many of you, COVID is what precipitated her decision to homeschool. So we are not going to pretend that we have all the answers or that we're doing homeschool perfectly, but encourage you guys that as you're on your journey, it comes from many different places and it can be done many different ways. Our BookShark community is here to support each other in not only the choice of using BookShark as your curriculum, but also a community at large that we're all homeschool parents doing the very best by our kids. So let me bring in Andrea. Good morning, Andrea.
Hello, good morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. I hope I was not amiss for calling you a reluctant homeschooler. Why don't you go ahead and just give a little bit of background of who you are, and then we'll kind of talk about your homeschool journey.
Okay, yeah, no problem. You were spot on with the word reluctant because that would have been me. I was all the way through school when people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up. Teaching was at the bottom of my list, and I was okay saying that. Like, I see what you guys do, and that does not look fun. So I got my degree in accounting, but to pay for school, I joined the ROTC programs. I had a scholarship through them. So when I graduated, I also had my commissioning ceremony as a second lieutenant in the United States Army way back a couple decade or two ago. And I was active duty for 4 years, got out, got married, and my husband did convince me to teach for 2 years. And there were tears. There were tears shed. I was like, no, I would rather be back with boots on in a desert situation than do this anymore. So the end of my second year of teaching, we found out I was pregnant. So I took a step back. I was like, okay, let's try this. And I loved being a stay-at-home mom. Absolutely loved it. But I also looked forward to when kindergarten happened. Like I loved my childhood schooling experience. So I was living with that dream that she would also have a really fun kindergarten where, I mean, my kindergarten teacher lived across the street from our school, and she had an apple tree. So we got to go across the street, pick apples, and make applesauce for like that was the type of schooling I hold in my heart and was expecting for my daughter. I'm in a completely different state though, so things are different now in the 2020s. And when my daughter was going into kindergarten, it was fall of 2020. So the spring break that never ended was her pre-K. So that, I wasn't concerned about that. But then as we approach August, my husband, who is a public school teacher, was just like, no, she's going to be on the computer all day long. And I was like, well, that can't happen. And in Texas, kindergarten is not required. So I'll go to the store and get some workbooks, and we'll go to the park and we'll read and we'll make alphabet letters on the wall. And it was all good and great. But as the year was progressing, I was like, okay, this works, but I don't know how to teach reading. Like I can do math, numbers, okay, I'm an accountant, that I can do, but reading, no, I ever. I know I learned phonics, but I don't know how to teach a kid to read. And they just, all the people say, oh, just read to your child. Okay, I'll do that. But then how do I switch that to her reading to herself and enjoying it and liking it? And, we did the read a page and you'll get a sticker on the page. We did all the things, but I was finally like, if we're going to keep doing this, I need help to know what I am a military person. I am an accountant. I like rules. I like guidelines. I need a plan to do this. And so I assigned my husband that role because he is a teacher and a very good one. I was like, I need you to tell me how I'm going to do this. And so he looked through it, all sorts of different curriculums, all through the span of things. And he came upon BookShark. And he was like, okay, this is good. It's just straight academics. It doesn't lean either way. It is purely science, math, and a whole lot of books. Because at the time, since they were all on the computer, there weren't books. The kids didn't have books. They were just looking at the screen. And that was one thing we were both very hesitant and cautious over. So BookShark was offering a box of literal books and said, okay, well, he likes it for that. He showed me the instructor guides, which I was like, okay, I'm sold. Let's do this. And as we got started with it, because we bought the hands-on history, and my daughter was in love with the hands-on history. The very first one that we did, she thought was amazing. And then we got into the science experiments. She's a Lego fiend. She loves to build things. So the science experiments have been just a highlight of her week when we go through those. She loves, absolutely treasures the books, especially some of the little readers. She really liked the Owl and Toad readers from first and second grade. She thought they were hilarious. The bingo cards. I mean, anyway, BookShark has really worked for us for all three of what we were wanting for schooling for our daughter. She has a lot of fun with it. I feel absolutely blessed to have it planned for me, but it's still flexible because if something doesn't work, there's that extra day sliding on over and it works really, really well. And then my husband just notices, which is kind of a benefit that I probably rely more on than I realize, is that he comes home and she shows him what she's been doing and how she's been doing things, and they talk through things, and he's like, oh, okay, this is really good. You are right in step, if not more in step with where the other kids are at. So, all right, good deal. On the flip side, when I'm struggling with something, like trying to motivate her to do handwriting, she's in 4th grade now, and it's not the handwriting, it's the writing. She has no problem with the cursive, but trying to get her to write, it's nice to be able to bounce that off of him because he's like, yeah, no, they all hate it. None of them. Well, maybe like a couple, like at this age anyway. So it's really been a fun journey. It's a challenging journey. It's a fun journey. It's fulfilling, but it was a journey that I never in my craziest dreams would have envisioned myself going down for my family. But on the flip side, I would do anything for them and what's best for my daughter, and seeing her be able to, one, sleep in. I was on the bus at 6:10 every morning when I lived in the country of Wyoming. So I was one of the first people on the bus, one of the last people off the bus. I was on the bus for a long time, but I'm also a morning person. She is not, and that's okay. She can sleep, then she can go to dance in the evenings. She can do all the social things after school, and she's not bogged down with the homework that's awaiting her, with having to finish class or finish the dance class and go right home and eat and shower and homework and sleep. It's I'm able to relax a little bit more with her structure. It's still structured, but in a more relaxed way. So but that's kind of how we stumbled upon it, and how it's been embraced by all of us to the point where we're just like, well, no, I don't really need to look around, because it is going so well that why try to fix something that's not broken at this point? Like, nope, we're good.
Yeah.
So
Well, talk about fixing things that are broken. My computer, while we're in this live, is totally gone bonkers. So I apologize for those who are watching. But Andrea, thank you for keep
yes,
moving, because I don't even know, I was gone for a minute there. I apologize. So I love that your journey was kind of non-traditional. I was surrounded by people who are like, I'm gonna homeschool. I just really want to homeschool. And I'm like, ugh, I was homeschooled. Why do you want to do that? It was not at all on my radar. I mean, and then my husband was like, maybe we should homeschool. And I'm like, ugh, why would you want me to do that? Like, I don't want to do that. And then here we are in our ninth year of homeschool with Bookshark. It has been definitely a journey. What would you say what were your friends and family's reception? I know 2020 was a little different and people were kind of leaning towards it, but when you kind of made that decision that this was the path for now, what was the initial reaction by family and friends when you weren't putting your children back or your daughter back when the schools opened back up?
it was kind of more of a curiosity, like, well, but how are you going to socialize her? How are you going to make sure? Because to be fair, since we do have a teacher in the house, and I am technically a certified teacher, we didn't get so much the pushback on the, well, you're not qualified, because we are. But it was more of the, well, are you sure? Because the kids that were homeschooled when I was younger, from like the aunts and uncles who were very concerned about the socializing, like, I understand that you're worried about that, but COVID did happen. Everyone stayed home, and everybody's, for the most part, going to come out of it just fine. And they knew she was involved at the time. She was doing ballet, ice skating. She was doing a little figure skating thing for a while. She was doing jazz. She was doing rock climbing during the day, and then church. So it was just, and we had a co-op. So it was because of homeschooling that we were able to do and provide so many other opportunities for her to get out and meet other kids. Because again, it was COVID. So there were so many other kids that were just popping out of everywhere. And it's like, oh, okay. It's kind of, when I was talking to some of my aunts, I was like, because I have a lot, I have 11 aunts on my maternal side. And so as I spoke to them, I was just like, well, you know how if you join a sorority in college, you meet people that you would never otherwise meet because it's not your degree path or anything like that. Or when you're in the Army, you meet people you would have never otherwise met. Homeschooling provides a way to meet people that you wouldn't have ever met before from all different parts of your city, because you're not at the neighborhood school and you're not confined to just whatever you can stick in between 3:30 and 6 o'clock or 7:30 at night, so it wasn't so much a problem. Also, we don't live near any of our families, so that helps a little bit, where you're just like, well, we're doing this curriculum and she's doing all of these other things, where they didn't really have much response to that. And I think a lot of it helped that COVID was happening at that time, because so many of my cousins were at least looking at it, or they had switched over to like the online virtual schools, just because the public schools were so chaotic. And I mean, which is fair, because that was hard for, it was a quick transition and it was rough for everybody involved. And so it was just kind of, it's just more of the currently, well, are you still homeschooling? Are you gonna keep her until middle school, high school? Because when you tell people, well, no, she's not going back for middle school. Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. But I mean, again, why try to fix something that's not broken? It doesn't,
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting when, there's like this exception to the rule, like, well, I get, when they're younger. Okay. But when they get older, surely you're not going to keep homeschooling. And I mean, my daughter's a sophomore in high school, and we're homeschooling, and it's definitely gained ground since COVID. I think being a homeschooler in the 90s, it's different. I do remember like people being like, oh my gosh. And when I went to college, I mean, I kind of wore it as a badge of honor, because I am a little bit rebellious that way. And my parents were hippie-ish. And so it was like, yeah, we don't do things conventionally. Like, well, that's no fun. So what would you say are some of the things that you run into, maybe not daily, but in your years of homeschool now, that maybe are pretty typical, but as a new homeschool parent, they're like, oh my gosh, maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe you know what I mean? Like, what are some of those things that you feel like, this is a pain point, but we get past it every year or whenever it comes up?
So for usually the biggest pain point for me is me, my internal, because I was raised very conventionally, and I am a box person. I like rules. I like defined guidelines to stay in, and I have to constantly remind myself it's okay if she's not feeling well today. She's going to get sick if she's in regular school too. And guess what? She doesn't really make up all of that work that she would miss at school. So it's okay if she doesn't do every single piece of the instructor guide. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay if the laundry piles up for a couple of days, because you are really involved in this one project, this science thing she just completely dove into, and you're wanting to learn more about it. It's okay if this other thing has to take a breather for right now. And it's equally okay if I have to ask my husband for help when he gets home, be like, I could not get her to write this paragraph. She knows the answer. She has it in her head. But because when we started, there was a lot of have mom and dad transcribe the dictation. If you remember, if you were with BookShark when they were little, they would dictate it and I would write it. And she loved that, to the point where now she will at some times be like, well, just transcribe for me. And you, when you have to call in reinforcements, that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
It's going to be just fine. So normally I find the biggest hurdle is myself, in that I still want things to go according to plan, and it's not going to, and that's
Yeah. Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
a-okay.
I think that's a common theme for parenting. I mean, I talk a lot about how, you're parenting on steroids in a sense when you're choosing to homeschool because you're parenting all the time. And
Yeah.
so the biggest mistake I think I have made as a parent is I get in my own way. And sometimes I dig my heels in on things that just don't matter. It just doesn't matter in the larger picture, in the full scheme of things. And when I stop and ask myself, why am I digging my heels in? It's usually because convention tells me that's how it should be done. And that's the only way to do it. And so I really try to go, oh, okay. I don't like my daughter, my 15-year-old will sleep till 10. And that, even as a girl that grew up with hippies, that I'm just like, oh, I'm up with the sun. Like
Right.
I like, let's get our stuff done. Why would you prolong it? I mean, you have different personality, you have convention thing, the way things were, you have your own upbringing, your own lens. And so we do get in our own way so often, and we are what makes it painful to homeschool sometimes. And I don't mean that. I'm definitely in control of my household and my children. I've
Oh, of
graduated
course.
too, and you know what I mean. So sometimes I think like, oh, when I say that, people think like I'm just a willy-nilly person. Absolutely not. Like I'm not willy-nilly. But I do find that the more flexible you can be with yourself and your kids in your homeschool, the more enjoyable it becomes. And if we just go, okay, yes, this is prescribed this way and it's going to work really well, but if we don't get it done, if we choose not to do that portion, if we feel like we would benefit better doing it this way, all of that is great. It's not this line that we have to walk to, like, don't fall off the line. It's like this whole area is where
Mm.
we are at. And it's okay to veer to the right and come back to the left. And yes, there's parameters that keep us safe. Do I like safety? But instead of feeling like you can't get off the line, I want people to know, especially in November of 2024, like here it is. Like if you need
Yeah.
a box, I'll give you a box, but make sure you get all messy
Color
in that
all of
box.
it.
Like,
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So one super exciting thing that I want to talk about before you go is you are an author and you wrote a book about your journey being in the military as
Yes.
a young woman. So, quickly, just tell us a little bit about that. So, if our parents are looking for a fun read, they can go check that out on Amazon.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. So when I was in the military, I am, you can't tell on the screen, but I am of small stature. I am 5'3", and you know, but I'm very tenacious, and I am Irish, so I am stubborn. So went in because I wanted to be like my parents in that they both worked their way through college, and they were both very proud of that. So I grew up knowing dad ate popcorn to get through medical school. So that's what he like lived on. So it's like, well, I'm going to pay my own way through school. So I came across Army ROTC, and when I commissioned, one of the parting words of advice from my lieutenant colonel from my university was, do not smile for the first 90 days, because I'm a very bubbly person. I am very optimistic, and he was like, don't do that. You need to set a stern, you know, face. And I failed at that very much. But but I did journal because I had some head trauma happen. And so from my neurologist, I had to keep what I called a headache journal. And I was still able to train with my troops. I was still able to run. If you are thinking of the military, start running. That's all. That's my advice, is just make sure you can outrun the person who is who is like your supervisor, because that will earn you points to be able to go longer for farther. That's just what I think. But so this book it was more of kind of like a little passion project after I was pregnant and I decided to stay home. That's when I started transcribing my journal into a book, just to kind of show that it does take so many different types of people to make our military work. They're not all Navy SEALs. They're not all Green Beret. They're not. Yes, I had to go roll around in the dirt, and I had to learn the Field Manual 7-8, knocking out a bunker and clearing a room. I had to learn all of those because that is the core of being a United States soldier. But once I got through that and into that, with my accounting degree, they, assigned me as a chemical officer. So I was more of a trainer, and I did a lot of PowerPoint presentations about all the things chemical and biological, and I was still very needed. It was a good thing that I wasn't the first one needed. I was plan C, but this book kind of goes through being a blonde female, earning the respect of her peers and her supervisors and the trust of her soldiers in the military. And some of the comments that I got back from it, that it should be something that high schoolers read, because that was the first unconventional thing that I had ever done in my life, was just trying for the scholarship itself. Because my dad was a physician, my mom was a dental hygienist. So the initial pushback that I got was, well, why isn't your dad just paying for college? And that made me so mad. So in the back of my head, as I'm talking about this book, I'm like, well, no, I guess I'm not as in the box as I thought, because I was like, well, no, now I'm going to do this just to show you that I can. Because if you're able to help your country, at the time, I started college in 2003. So it was very shortly after 9/11. And I had, of all my maternal family, we've had a lot of male soldiers, male military going throughout the tree, but no females. But I was like, well, I mean, I'm smart. I grew up in Wyoming, so I know how to take care of myself in the wilderness. I can do that, and it will pay for college, and I'll have a job right out of college. So let's do it. So that's and actually the funniest thing, it wasn't until I was in the Army that I learned how to sew. And it was from my master sergeant, he had all the patches, like the airborne and all the things. The man knew how to sew perfectly, because you have to do back then you had to do the patches, and if something rips, you take needle and thread and you sew it up yourself, because your mom is not there to help you.
Yeah. Well, so you really are a trendsetter. I like that. I like that self-revelation for you as we are talking about this. Tell us once again what the title of the book is called.
Oh, it is called On Being a Blonde in Combat Boots.
All right. Well, we will put that in our notes for those of you who want to explore that a little bit more. Andrea, thank you so much for being with us today and just talking about your experience. Thank you for being a faithful BookShark user, and for just so you guys know, if you happen to have talked to Andrea, she does work with BookShark now. She is an employee with us, and so she is in our sales department. She loved what she saw, and we loved her passion about it. So maybe you have spoken to Andrea before on the phone, and we just appreciate her and all that she's done as much as we appreciate you guys and your contributions to this community. So I hope this is encouraging to you. Get through November. The holidays are almost here. We're going to be having some great activities in December. just a little sneak peek, we're going to be doing some STEAM activities. So that's STEM with an A added for the arts. And we'll give you guys different ideas on how to do holiday themed activities with your kids throughout December. So we're really looking forward to that. But before we go, I mean, that's December. We just started November. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I do want to let you guys know, as you see the posts come through on both BookShark and our Bootcamp, we are doing a campaign of gratefulness. So please, please comment on those. We would love to know what you guys are grateful for, the things that you have seen in your life, in your family, in your homeschool, in your communities. Just encourage each other in this month of November. So Andrea, thank you so much. Thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed our November Live, and we'll see you next week for our Q&A. Bye.
Thank you.